all being recorded now, so nobody do anything crazy. We're just hoping, we had a lot of folks message and say they couldn't make it tonight, so we wanted to record and.
Hang it on Facebook or YouTube or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Generally, people who are interested in food entrepreneurship or different people.
What are you doing tonight? And I like that. I was probably going to run one. Yes. Sounds good.
Okay.
All right, guys, I think we're going to go ahead and get started. We may have a few more trickle in, but we're going to go ahead and get started. So thank you guys for those that made it online. If you're watching, thank you for joining virtually. We are here to kind of discuss bringing a shared use kitchen to Poweshiek County and just give more information on what that exactly means for our community and just in general. So we're going to go ahead and start with introductions of ourselves. And then I think we have a small enough group here tonight that maybe we can go around the room and just do a quick introduction, your name and just kind of why you're here. If you have a food business or if you're looking to start one, that would be great information to share. So I'll just let us all introduce ourselves.
Penny Brown Huber. I work for Iowa State University at Farm Food and Enterprise Development. I'll talk a little bit more about what I do, but I'm a food business specialist.
I'm Alathia Andera. I am the program coordinator for Poweshiek County out of the Extension Office in Montezuma.
I'm Tommy Hexter, and I'm the executive director for Grinnell Farm to Table.
I'm Chris Sporer, and I am the owner of Golden Pear Kitchen.
Hello, I'm Dan Nieland, the executive director of Poweshiek Economic Development. Some of you may have heard of Pow I-80 back in the day. That's what we are now, just basically, and I'll get into that too, what I do momentarily.
I'm Evan McFarland. This is my wife, Christy. I'm currently in management at Mom's Meals here in town. Unofficially, I've done some catering things through church for some friends' weddings, things like that, some fairly sizable events and stuff. So been helped with some friends that have businesses as well as done some other things kind of on the side, but looking at access to commercial kitchen kind of been our thing right now.
Crosby, I have nothing to do with food business. I'm just curious.
Hi, I'm Becky Hassett. I'm with Iowa Valley Community College, and we offer some community classes, and maybe this is an opportunity to provide a community class dealing with food.
I'm Anya Hart. I'm kind of part of this group, but a little bit more set back. I would be like the design person involved in the project, but yeah.
My name is Simone Bates. I'm here with the Montezuma Record, but I also have personal interest. I used to run a coffee shop, so this is kind of an interesting thing just from a personal perspective too.
I'm Elizabeth Haas. I work at Grinnell UCC, and I'm just here because we have a kitchen space that's going unused, and I was just curious to learn more about what all you are interested in.
Hi, I'm Katie Witt. I am the community food coordinator for the Grinnell Food Coalition, and I'm just interested in anything food systems, and would love to start a food business myself someday. So.
Hi, I'm Liz Queetham. I'm the interim director of the Center for Prairie Studies. That's co-sponsoring this event, I guess. Big fan of Tommy and all the work that he does. And as you can see by our t-shirts, I buy through Grinnell Farm to Table.
Great. Well, thank you guys for coming and introducing yourselves. Sorry to put you on the spot like that, but it kind of makes it feel more intimate. So appreciate you guys doing that. So we're going to kind of just, like I said, this is a really kind of casual. We're going to tell you what we're about, what we're trying to start here in Poweshiek County. We're each going to go through some different things. If you guys have questions during one of our little things, raise your hand. We can do questions kind of as we go along. But yeah, otherwise you can save them for the end and we will do questions then. So we are going to start. Penny Huber Brown is going to, like she mentioned, she works with ISU through the through Food Enterprise Economic Development. Did I get that backwards? I'm sorry. Yeah, those acronyms. They're hard. So she's going to kind of walk through like what is a shared kitchen, why it is kind of something that ISU really has decided to rally behind and try and get into different counties across Iowa. So I'll pass it on over.
So I'm going to use the mic because my voice sometimes is fairly soft, and so I want to be sure you can hear. I did do the PowerPoint that we're going to go through, so if everyone got a copy of that. So hold on a second if I can do both of these things.
Still need a copy of the PowerPoint.
Having trouble advancing the.
Okay, all right. Yeah, so let's go to the next slide. Thanks. So yeah, I am located on Iowa State University's campus in Ames, actually at the Research Park, and it's a really nice place to be. So if you ever want to come for a visit, always love to see people and talk about food and food enterprises. So I thought I'd give you a little overview about our mission. We kind of broad. We do a lot of working with farmers, but also value-added businesses, and now a lot more work with small food processors. So I've been on for about 1 year and 4 months, and my work is really focused on food processing. Okay, go ahead, Tommy. So part of what I do, it's a kind of a broad swath. So many of you'll know that the state of Iowa passed in 2022 the cottage law. And that really opened up opportunities to create food processing businesses in homes. So the cottage law has 2 levels. It's sort of just sell at farmers markets and direct to consumer. And the other side is to get licensed and to also add a wholesale products to what you're doing, as long as they're mostly shelf stable. So this has been an amazing thing that's been happening. There are hundreds of people who are looking at, starting small food processing businesses. So it's a really exciting time. And so while I'm doing that, I'm also focused at creating more shared use kitchens in Iowa. So when I started, I thought, oh, how many shared use kitchens could there be in Iowa? And knowing that Minnesota has 30 or 40 and Wisconsin has 30 or 40. And at that time, I could really identify only 5 in the entire state of Iowa. So it's really, excuse me, it's a gap that we have. And all of you, whether you're creating a business or helping small business, trying to do something to build our local food system, without the shared use kitchens, we will really struggle, because the home-based licensed people, when they're developing their product and trying to sell it wholesale, when they hit 50,000 in sales, they have to leave their home kitchen and look for somewhere else to go. And it's too big of a leap to go from your home kitchen to a built processing plant. So the shared use kitchens become this really, really important piece to economic development and also to continuing to build the local food system. One of the things that I kind of talk about is there's two things that we've done in the local food system. We've kind of said it's on farmers sometimes to try to figure it out. Well, they farm. That's what they're supposed to do. And the other is that we have the least number of small food processors in the nation. And you know that because when you go to the grocery store, it's very hard to find food products on the shelves, right? So I think what's happened is that this is my opinion, but we've invested a lot of resources in the grain and livestock, the agricultural system works well, produces a lot, does great, but we kind of forgot about food, right? So all of you, in whatever role you're in, I hope you understand you're kind of like part of the pioneer part of building our local food system. It's really important. And so without a shared use kitchen, you're going to have a really hard time supporting your small food processors as they continue to grow, because we want them to grow and become profitable. So, okay, Tommy. So I'm going to just give you sort of a little bit broader perspective of a shared use kitchen. This team that is hosting this today attended a shared use kitchen workshop that Iowa State had at the end of March on campus. And we brought literally the expert in the nation on shared use kitchens to the workshop to teach it. And in addition, we also brought the Iowa Department of Inspections and Appeals to talk about licensing and food safety. So it was an amazing 2 days. This amazing team came. And so they've had, they've kind of begun to really churn in their minds what's a possibility. So a shared use kitchen here, it kind of has some different pieces. It is a licensed commercial space, and those processors within the space will also be licensed, but it can do a lot of things. It could work with chefs, it could work with food trucks, it could work with bakers and shelf-stable products, and really create a lot of small startup businesses. It also is a space where people who've been doing it for a while out of their kitchens will really translate to. And so you've got a lot of people interested in growing their business. So it's a very dynamic space. Okay, Thomas. It's also a place that entrepreneurship is thriving, yet it may not always know how best to do that, right? So being a business leader, being a food entrepreneur, you have to really track your expenses, right? Understand your income and where you're losing money, where you're making money. And so oftentimes shared use kitchens will provide other things than just the kitchen space. That might provide educational opportunities. Maybe it'll help answer some problems that people have. Now, interestingly enough, the Kitchen Council in Council Bluffs, if you look them up, that is one of their primary things, that shared use kitchen, is to provide entrepreneurship training, because they want to launch people from their shared use kitchen out into the greater world at some point. It also really kind of spurs more economic opportunities. And it kind of can attract different kinds of businesses. So sometimes the businesses together can even work together to figure out maybe how to reach a bigger market. Tommy's kind of heading this food hub. Maybe the food hub and the shared use kitchen work together, right? And that could really bring more economic opportunities. So they are like co-working spaces, and each person in it would be paying for a certain amount of space to do their products, but they're also part of a community. And so they're learning and sharing from each other. So keep going. So this is the food corridor. If you Googled the food corridor, Ashley Copart, who is the woman that came and taught here in Iowa, she's the guru of shared use kitchens. She just recently completed a 386-page shared use kitchen toolkit that this team has access to now to help you all look at building a kitchen. So, here kind of gives you an idea. Sometimes people, it's hard for them to imagine size, but a lot of them, about 12%, are less than 1,000 square feet. So they can be small. Personally, I think that's pretty small, but 1,000 to 3,000, 40% of the shared use kitchens in the country are in that size. And then there are a few that are extraordinarily large, and they are doing a lot of different activities, and really they might even have a distribution center within their shared use kitchens. So the other thing I wanted to share with you is what does it look like in terms of, what can it generate in terms of income? And this is out of the Food Corridor Survey. So you can see that, the majority of them, about 77%, really have a budget that's less than $250,000. And really, once you get your kitchen built appropriately with the right kinds of commercial equipment, and you've got a manager, there's not a lot of continuous improvements you're making. Really, you're working with the entrepreneurs to continue to build their businesses. And as you can see, there's actually 1% that over 2.5 million. So that I'm thinking that might be New York City or someplace like that. Certainly not Iowa. The other side here is, I get this asked a lot. Do these shared use kitchens make money? Well, you can see in this survey right here that 78% of them either broke even or they make money. All right. So if they're put together right, and the plan is a good plan, the budget's done so that, and you're tracking it and you're making good decisions, you have a pretty good chance at the minimum of breaking even or making money. And I tend to, right now, I want to do this. This is really exciting, but because we have so few in Iowa and we need so many, right? There are a lot of people looking for shared use kitchen space. And so this team is working on a survey that I think they're asking folks to fill out right now. And so it's going to be really important that people fill that survey out and get the right kinds of potential customers to this team, so we could plan the right size, the right kind of equipment for this shared use kitchen. It's a really important activity. So sometimes, keep going, Tommy, that there are some different value propositions for kitchens, and you have to think about, is it only to make food, or do we want to do something else? And how are we serving the customer, right? So if I'm a food processor, I'm going to lower my startup costs or lower some of my costs, because if I had to build my own facility, right, you may spend all your money doing that and you have nothing left to build your business with. So it's really giving you a chance to reduce your overhead. You're also going to have commercial professional equipment. All right. It's not like a home kitchen. This is commercial equipment. I say this all the time. Commercial freezers, commercial refrigerators, a hood over the stove and oven, and it's professional equipment. It's a very flexible space. So some people may need to come in for 3 hours one day a week. Some people may need to come in for 4 hours 3 days a week. So it has a way of flexing with the different processors. You do have a 24-hour day, but people will be probably renting, the space maybe by the hour. And so that the manager is really trying to balance, okay, how do we fit some of these things together. And then also you could really share some resources. So maybe there's 2 or 3 people that need to order the same kind of, packaging, or like boxing when you're making product for wholesale. Maybe you all need the same kind of box. Then, maybe you can have an ordering system that would help reduce some of those costs. Keep going. Then there's lots of health and safety compliance. The nice thing is that the kitchen will have passed all of their health and safety compliance, and that kind of gets, it spills over to your food processing business, but you also have to go through food safety and understand, and you'll have to have the kind of tracking that you need for your business. But some of the more difficult, maybe, items for health and safety, they'll have rules so that everybody can follow them. And nothing makes people madder than someone leaves a dirty station and the next person comes along and has to spend an hour cleaning, right? That's aggravating. So business development support. If I was to look across the nation, I would say this is the #1 thing they really provide for additional services from a shared use kitchen. And that's because, being an entrepreneur, it takes a lot, right? You gotta think about your business. You gotta think about food safety. You gotta make your product. You gotta deliver your product, so there's a lot happening. So the business support can be really helpful. A lot of community partnerships and support. The shared use kitchen will do better if the community really rallies around it, right? So if there's a community event and people can buy from the processors using the shared use kitchen, maybe there's a way that, an agreement could happen and we could have an order. That's a way that we're all supporting the shared use kitchen. And then market access opportunities. So we would hope to see that the local retailers, maybe there might be an event at the kitchen, but there also might be something at the farmer's market to tell the public about, the processors that we have at our shared use kitchen. Keep going. So just because this is kind of that high type of look, but I just wanted to go through. So as you're thinking about this, so it'll be really important for everybody to understand the needs of the entrepreneurs. So not all food processors can work in the shared use kitchen together. So a perfect example is, I'm sure you have great bakers here, and a lot of them might be interested in the shared use kitchen. And then you have a gluten-free baker, let's say. If you have 2 or 3 bakers, you're not going to be able to have a gluten-free baker in the shared use kitchen. There's just no way really to make that happen. So it's sort of understanding those needs. Really, this team is going to have to design a very efficient and effective kitchen, okay? And that's going to come some from the survey. It's going to come by having some folks come in that Iowa State works with to try to give some input to a space that's chosen. Developing a culture inside the kitchen. So the kitchen council over in Council Bluffs, they have an honor system there. They don't lock anything. Every entrepreneur has a shelf they keep their dry goods in, and they have this honor system, and they talk about it, and they want a culture that's about honesty and integrity. And so that's what they've set. Hiring slow and firing fast. That kind of sounds brutal, doesn't it? But I think, when it comes to food, making mistakes could be very critical, right? So, when you have the right person in the right place, it all seems perfect. Like you ran a coffee shop, right? You know what it means to hire and fire people, probably. But when a mistake is made, you have to address it right away, because there's a lot of people who it may affect. We have, Department of Inspections, Appeals, and Licensing, and they will be licensing both the shared use kitchen and then the individual processors. So getting to know the folks that are doing that, really important. And they're very excited at Dial about shared use kitchens. We have a partnership with them from my team in Ames, and so we talk with them quite a bit. And then sometimes, you might find like you have to support the entrepreneurs because maybe things are getting pretty rough, right? More orders. How am I going to get delivered? Family, children. I mean, just start thinking about. So you may find yourself having to support them in ways you didn't expect. Managing costs and risk. Everybody has to keep an eye on the finances. Lots of things can drip out of a food budget when you don't even think it's important, but you have to keep an eye on that. A positive reputation in the community so that maybe you're going back. The folks leading the shared use kitchen keeps going back into the community, talking to the city council of Grinnell, talking to supervisors in Poweshiek, like building the relationship to let them know you are doing great things. Continuous communication, and there's some shared use kitchens you could maybe use as examples of they may have some things set up already that you could copy, or also the shared use kitchen toolkit. Thinking about the technology, how are people going to check in, check out? How are you going to be recording some different things you need? How are you going to communicate with them? How are you going to build customers with them? A diverse tenant base. If you have people who can only be there from 6 to 10 p.m. at night, that's not a diverse tenant base, right? That's probably one type of processor. So really have to think about all these different time segments in a day and who can fill those. And then any other value-added services that you might provide. Keep going, yeah. I would expect that you'll ask the processors to be active in the community. Like they need to be telling their story and helping share about the kitchen, and the kitchen needs to be doing the same for them. So it's a continuous thing. Fostering inclusivity. So, food trucks, caterers, just start thinking about all the people who make food, and there's a lot of different kinds of folks who are involved in food. And then you could always experiment with new models and programs. Should never be fearful about, coming up with a good idea with all the entrepreneurs and saying, hey, let's try this new service or this new model. Okay, that was a lot, really quick. So I brought my guide. So if anybody has questions about different food licensing, I can help. But I also brought everybody a gift. So I'll pass this around. This is an allergen magnet that we had made up that can go into kitchens. And if you have a friend who processes food and you'd like to hand one to them, please do. But it gives us, it has the 9 primary allergens, and then there's secondary allergens within it. And it's meant to help kitchens stay on top of their allergens. So I'll pass this around.
All right, any questions for Penny? Like she said, she did a great job. I gave her a very hard task to fit a lot of information in a very short period of time. So she is a wealth of knowledge. We're very grateful to have her be a part of our team and to be here tonight. So moving right along, we are going to have Tommy Hexter talk next just about what the vision is from the Grinnell Farm to Table and why maybe this is a good fit, why we believe it's a good fit for Poweshiek County. So he's going to kind of go into a little bit more detail about that.
Thank you. And thank you, Penny, and the team at Iowa State for all your help in this. I'll start with a little background on what Grinnell Farm to Table is for those of you who are not familiar. First of all, we're a nonprofit organization. We have a board of directors who serve in other roles in the community, people who work at the hospital, at the college, other businesses in the area. And then our mission is to connect food growers, food producers with consumers in Poweshiek County. So basically being the middle of the supply chain between farmers and consumers, because as Penny said, farmers farm, and there's a million other things to do. And so we are a food hub, which means we do work with other food hubs around the state, and collectively food hubs in the state of Iowa work with around 300 producers. Here in Grinnell, we work with around 40. And there's a trucking route that goes around the state every week, connecting the food hubs with each other. So all of a sudden, some of our producers in Poweshiek County can sell onto that truck into places like in Decorah, all the way over to Omaha, into some of those markets. So it's a way to kind of, by collaboration, grow markets for local producers. And then on the customer side, we do both retail. So we have an online market where people can shop for food. We also do food access work, and that's a big part of our nonprofit mission. We provide local food boxes to the community here. So how this crazy harebrained idea came to us to look into starting a kitchen. First of all, we work with a lot of people producing cottage foods at the moment. So if you look on our online farmers market, there's a number of people who are selling cottage right now. So things like salsas, jams, breads. But once producers get to a certain scale, they can no longer be cottage producers anymore. And there's not really a way to scale up. And we know we have producers who are wanting to do more. They want more kitchen space. They want to get into different markets, but they're limited in doing so. So what really brought this to a head for me was that we had a restaurant business that actually wanted to start up in our little store shop just north of McNally's. She said, "Can you build a kitchen in there so we can do a local food Thai restaurant?" And me being me, I was like, "Yeah, we can do that." And ended up, no, there wasn't room in that building, wasn't a good fit for us. But then about a month later, Dan walked into my building and said, "Hey, have you heard of this shared use kitchen model?" And I said, "No, but tell me about it." And so from there, just kind of been meeting for several months, realizing that this might be a good fit. And so basically, Grinnell Farm to Table has been in the business of selling raw agricultural products for a long time. Things like dairy, meat, eggs, grains, produce. But there's a way to boost sales for local farmers, and that's by turning raw agricultural products into something more shelf stable. And so us running a shared use kitchen would mean that our producers could then sell to the producers who are cooking in the kitchen, the food entrepreneurs. And then we could also be a market to sell those products, both directly to consumers, but potentially wholesale to other food hubs around the state, and to larger buyers. So kind of seeing like, okay, if we're in the middle of the supply chain, having a kitchen where our farmers can sell raw ingredients in, and then the kitchen entrepreneurs can sell finished products into the larger marketplace just makes a lot of sense. So obviously a shared use kitchen project for Grinnell Farm to Table would prioritize using locally grown ingredients. That being said, I think we'd still be interested in working with entrepreneurs who are not using locally grown ingredients, but there's an easy avenue to use local ingredients by working with Grinnell Farm to Table. And then we think, so beyond just the producers and the food entrepreneurs, there's other opportunities for the Grinnell community here, like cooking classes, event space, these sorts of things that would kind of add to our food culture in the area. And so in short, we know Iowa has the best soil in the world. So we know we can raise the best food in the world here. And by creating a kitchen, we can kind of showcase some of that food and products that would be hugely beneficial for both farmers, food entrepreneurs, and consumers in the area. So how is that going to happen here is what we've been talking about. And we have picked a prospective location for a shared use kitchen. And that is at Grinnell Heritage Farm, which is on the north side of town. We're going ahead with the conversations. We haven't signed anything formally yet, but they're very interested in working on this project with us. In 2017, they built a 7,500 square foot pack shed on their farm. which is fully, it's pretty well outfitted for, it's a blank slate right now with a lot of electrical and plumbing modifications already made. And so there's kind of room to build into that space, including things like a large kitchen space, cold storage, and then also having an event space. The other thing that people may remember about that farm is they used to have the pizza nights on Friday nights, which a lot of folks in the community are interested in bringing back. We view this as one opportunity to help bring those things back. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at. We've done a few walkthroughs there and started kind of sketching what the place looks like. We are also open to different conversations and options for a shared use kitchen. That's just kind of where the momentum has felt like it is right now. So we wanted to have this conversation, open it up to all of the community, and then continue taking feedback. But the main thing that we need right now, as Penny said, is to figure out what kind of producers have interest in being a part of this kitchen, so that we can then craft the kitchen around the producer needs. The last thing I will say is, as this will be a project of Grinnell Farm to Table, we would be doing all of the fundraising as a nonprofit to kind of build out the kitchen space, all the equipment and renovation needed for the space. So that's the biggest lift here with a project like this, but I think our community is ready for something like this. So happy to answer any questions. Go ahead, Crosby.
Currently, customers can only access your food hub through the internet, right? Is there any chance of being able to, on certain days of the week, just a bunch of people come and you can shop like a grocery store, or local people, local food producers?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, unrelated to this conversation, but we are starting open hours on Saturdays from 1 to 5 p.m. On June 14th. So, and then going forward. So yeah, you'll be able to come shop in person. And then we do hope, like if we have the kitchen space out at the farm, to have kind of a storefront out there too, where people can come shop whatever's being produced. Any other questions or feedback from folks? I'll pass it along to Dan.
Perfect, thank you. Again, I'm with Poweshiek Economic Development, and we're the de facto economic developer for the city of Grinnell, the city of Brooklyn, city of Monty, and the county as a whole. So when I look at that, there's two types of economic development when you're talking about workforce: either bring in the next Mom's Meals or grow your own. So a lot of times there is way more sense of community when you grow your own. So we kind of like that. A lot of times if you bring in somebody from outside, they're probably already looking at where they might be going next, if they're chasing incentives and things like that. Whereas if we can grow the next Mom's Meals, the next whatever may be outside of food, the next Brownells, the next Monty Manufacturing, whatever that is. But this is a perfect segue. That's kind of why I approached, because in my head, it made a complete sense for Tommy's group to take a serious look at shared use kitchens. Again, to grow, there's a number of varieties of types of kitchens you can do as far as shared use. One of them that we've had internal discussions, and of course I'm a favorite of, is the entrepreneurial type kitchen. In other words, as Penny said, you bring in an aspiring entrepreneur, or somebody that's already doing it, somebody that wants to grow wherever they are in their journey, and then you help them. You put them in touch with me, or you work with the Small Business Development Center. I was glad, Becky, that you were able to make it, because maybe Iowa Valley has some sort of training role in there as well. Whatever. Right now we're throwing all kinds of different ideas around. How do we make it the best kitchen it can be? And my gut says, and having done this long enough, it's about partnerships. What partnerships do you forge in the community? So a lot of the people here in this room right now could bring something to bear on what is hopefully a very successful shared use kitchen. But again, we do need that survey is integral to deciding what we want to do, because if all of a sudden it points to a different use of kitchen and we're trying to do A and B is what everybody wants, A is probably not going to be very successful. So one other thing I did want to, and I touched on very briefly, I don't want to take a lot of your time because I'm not the subject expert. I really, other than providing some assistance from the outside, that's my angle. And anything I can do to foster entrepreneurship, help entrepreneurs. I'm an entrepreneur myself. My wife and I have a couple gigs that we do on the side. So I love entrepreneurs. I love people with an idea. I've been those. I've lost a lot of money in that fashion too. So that's why I help people try to be as smart as they can about doing these things. Because there's a couple tens of thousands of dollars I wish I had back that I tried a couple different things over the years. But you keep swinging as an entrepreneur. So I can see that in some people's eyes in this room. I really can. I love it. But there's that sense of partnership and bringing help, like POW-I-80. That's actually our old name. Now it's Poweshiek Economic Development. We can help, and if we can't help, we'll hook you up with who that next person is, whether it be SBDC with business development or business plan development, things like that. Farm Food and Enterprise Development. I used to work actually before I took this job, worked right across from Petty, helping entrepreneurs in the ag space across the state. So I know a little bit, just enough to be dangerous when it comes to this type of thing. But if you have anything outside of work, actually, I'd love to talk to you anyway about Mom's Meals since I've got you in the room. And then Becky, maybe you and I can talk after this too. But thank you.
Hi, everybody. So again, I'm Chris from Golden Pear Kitchen. You'll have to forgive me. I haven't spoken in front of a group in 5 or 6 years. So I wrote down my notes. So I wouldn't forget what I talk about. So I actually relocated to Iowa about 4 years ago. I had been back east for my whole life. And after the pandemic, decided it was time to take a chance and follow my dream. And I wanted to be in a community, be part of a community, and do something that was going to improve people's lives while also working for myself. So I came here. I started a small farmers market business that did produce as well as baked goods. And we built up a clientele in Grinnell. I got to tell you, it was amazing. And it still amazes me to see the support that this community gives. So currently I'm working full time. I spend between 8 and 12 hours a week in my kitchen. Now, if I had a bigger stand mixer and I had a bigger commercial oven, I could produce at least twice what I'm producing now. But then I'd also need some sales channels. And that's where folks like Grinnell Farm to Table can help, because they can provide that segue for me to grow my business so that my goal of actually working for myself, sleeping until I'm done sleeping, and, taking a day off to go fishing, that's what we all want. But I went to Tommy when I, was looking for a commercial kitchen space and said, what's in the area, what's local? I can't drive an hour away to make something, spend 8 hours there, drive it back home, keep it stored an hour away. So now I have a sale and I have to pack up my car, drop everything, go there, pick it up, bring it over here, deliver. So when he asked me to sit in on the panel, I said, absolutely, because I'm greedy. This would be a huge benefit for me. So I have produced under the cottage food law, and I've also produced with the home food processing license. And they're both good. I mean, that's really how I've operated my businesses. But they both have limitations. I mean, cottage food, I can only sell direct to my customers. Home food processing, I can sell retail, but there's still things I can't sell. Home food processing, I could never sell my pickled goods. And I honestly do have the best banana peppers in the state. So having a commercial kitchen space is my only solution to get this full range of products out to everyone. Sorry, I got to consult the notes because I lost my train of thought. All right, so basically that was it. It was so excited. So again, my primary focus, I make baked goods, I make pickled goods, I make jams and jellies. I know the equipment that I would need, but if we have someone who has a catering business come in, so I'm looking at you, or if we have a food truck come in, they're going to have completely different needs. They're going to need something called, what is a dump grill, a dump sink, a dump something, which is a piece of equipment that I would never use. So without hearing from other food producers in the area, we're kind of flying at this blind. So if you can share with your friends, we'd appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, full circle. Thank you guys, all of you, for sharing. Like I said at the beginning, my name is Alathia Andera. I am the adult program coordinator for our county, Poweshiek. And so really ISU Extension Office, our role in this is, well, my job is to connect people in our county with resources that they need from the greater knowledge of our specialists. And so I work within 3 different groups, community economic development, health and human sciences, and then ag and natural resources. So this is a big opportunity, I think, for our community economic development and our health and human sciences. I think there's so much potential for different things that we can bring to our community by working in a shared use kitchen, a lot of classes, a lot of just uplifting entrepreneurs and getting them resources so that they can maybe one day branch out on their own and do it successfully. So something that, as Penny has mentioned, Tommy, I think everybody's touched on, this isn't something that we're trying to just jump into blindly because it will not work that way. So we really are taking the appropriate steps to make sure that we have all the available information as we continue on in this project to make the wisest decisions for every member in our community, whether it be a consumer or a baker or a caterer or whatever, so that everybody can get the fullest benefit out of this shared use kitchen. And we can do it and sustain it, and not only sustain it, but grow it in the future. So I'm really excited. There's just so much I could talk about how I see the Extension and Outreach Office working within this. But yeah, do you guys have questions?
One question I have is, I have not done much for research in the shared kitchens. I've heard of it, but never looked into it. Ballpark costs. I mean, how crazy is it getting involved with that? Renting space, obviously, bottom line, overhead is a big piece of success for anyone doing food.
So when I was looking at the range, it's between $15 and $20 an hour. That was about the national average, right? So again, the way I look at it, if we're around $15 an hour, $18 an hour, but I'm doubling what I can make in an hour, like I have already paid for myself. And then Penny, you can probably talk a little bit more about the licensing, because there is a different type of license that you have to get for the kitchen. And I thought it was around 400 or so.
So
the food processing plant license, like when we're talking about pickling, has to be that kind of license. It depends on who you're actually selling to. In Iowa, from the licensing perspective, we always think about, are we selling to consumers or are we selling wholesale? Okay. Those are basically the 2 tracks. So if you're selling to consumers, you would need a retail food license for the shared use kitchen. If you're selling wholesale, you would need a food processing plant. Those each step up to be a little bit more expensive, and it's of course a renewable. I think the most important thing about the shared use kitchen is you've got commercial equipment at your fingertips. You are probably just paying like, okay, I'm going to use this much square foot of a table. I need some dry storage. I'm going to have a shelf in the fridge, a shelf in the freezer. And you pretty quickly, I think, figure out, what the production scale I can do to meet this. I've talked to quite a few people about, some kitchens start out by charging like for half a day. for a whole day. But in reality, what happens is it's better to charge by the hour because you'll be more efficient as the food processor and you won't be overcharged. And it keeps that whatever space is not being used, could be charged to someone else. So there's you're kind of running through. It's hard to think about 24 hours available, kind of thing. So what kind of food are you thinking about making?
Yet to be determined. Currently, I do a lot of like barbecue stuff and things along those lines. I have a couple commercial smokers, things like that. But yeah, so it just varies on the moment. I've done a little bit of everything, just kind of been on the side, unofficially speaking, for the church, things along those lines as well. So probably invested far more in equipment, and I'm definitely never going to get money ahead on some of the stuff I bought. But yeah, as you mentioned, going into it,
So I think the each license kind of has the demand of what you need to do to be prepared to be licensed, and so my shop can help with that if you need some help. But you seem like an experienced food manager, so
I guess you're saying about needing to get licensed, things like that. Do these shared kitchens, does it ever delve into needing to go through USDA inspection, have some requirements and things along those lines, or is this kind of aside from that? We're talking food processing.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna say this, you guys can tell me no, but so we tend to recommend no meat in the shared use kitchen because of the USDA complexities of it and the food safety and it just goes on and on. So non-meat, and we would recommend no frying because the cleanliness and food safety issues are enough to make my brain explode. So yeah, so it kind of has those limitations.
Yeah, one thing I need to explore more, but I know that Grinnell Farm to Table would be interested in allowing meat in the kitchen, especially for caterers and other businesses like that, because obviously if we're having an event and people want catering, they're going to want meat in the meal. So we'll have to figure out what that looks like licensing wise, but.
Yeah, so that kind of gets at the nooks and crannies of why we're having discussions like this, because, even though we may want different things or we have different ideas, like just figuring out what is best for Poweshiek County and how to move forward in doing that the right way is really what we're coming down to. So yeah, we have a lot of these discussions in between ourselves, and it's been really good. And so we just really wanted to get some people in front of us, some faces, and get some feedback on what you guys might be looking for. And so the survey that you have, we do have an online version as well. If you know people or are in a circle of people that do things out of their home, please connect us with them. I have business cards that I'd like to give you guys. We can send me an email or connect us email wise. We'll get you guys a survey because that really does come down to the success within our county. So finding out what you guys need. Any final questions from you guys?
I have a couple of questions for Tommy. First, super excited to hear somebody might be bringing Thai food back to Grinnell. There was a brief halcyon period when we had a Thai restaurant here. It was amazing. And secondly, I'm wondering if the wood-fired pizza oven, is that still there?
It is. Yeah, it's like an Italian imported wood-fired pizza oven.
Super fancy and it makes really good pizza. So that's great to hear.
Yeah, they still have all the pizza night infrastructure. So that would definitely be a business we'd like to see come back as part of the shared use kitchen.
Yeah.
So would this be a space that customers can come and potentially have a meal on site, or is this strictly for food processing and cooking and baking, and all food consumed would be off site? So I think it'd be really great if we could have that interaction with the community. They could actually come in, watch people prepare the food, and be able to enjoy on site, especially if we're in a site like the Grinnell Heritage Farm. It's so beautiful, and there's all the outdoor seating. It could be, especially if we're doing pizza meals and stuff. I think there's a lot of opportunity there to add more restaurant type businesses here, like within the shared use kitchen.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, as I just a minute ago, I was like, yeah, we're definitely going to have meat in there. I don't want to say that because it's important that we do take the input from people, but I think, yes, I think we're going to hear that input from people, that people want to have outdoor dining, event space out at the farm again. So I do, yeah, I envision that happening. And whether it's like pop-up restaurant opportunities, you know, like Wednesday nights is Thai food night, or, you know, something like that, where people can come out to the farm and enjoy a meal. You know, I could really envision something like that taking off in the town. So.
So the biggest thing with that, just as part of our discussion, and something that we're really trying to figure out logistically, is to make sure that we stay within our own, I guess, needs for our licensing within the kitchens and stuff, within letting, you know, having random people around the food and things like that walking through the kitchen. So those are things that we're talking about logistically. So that's why Tommy said we can't really say like at this point definitively yes, because we've got to figure out how that would look like, just to make sure that everybody is safe, but can also enjoy the site right within our community. So thank you for that question.
Yeah, if you're interested in a model like that and you ever get down to Fairfield, I recommend checking out the Fairfield Food Collective, because they have a very similar thing where I think they have 8 different kitchen stalls in the back, and then they have a front of house where you can shop retail items. So things like jams and other packaged goods, but there's also a restaurant up there open for lunch every day. So kind of a similar idea, I think. But in general, I would say the way that we're looking at this is, the more different, diverse revenue streams there are, the healthier the kitchen will be. And so like things like events, open hours for restaurants, and then obviously just the food businesses working themselves is in general, I think, a good thing.
Question about, okay, each person who goes in there would clean up after themselves, but would there need to be like a cleaner who comes in and like does more deep like sanitizing, or would it just be just clean up after yourself?
Well, so from what I remember from the workshop, basically everyone is responsible for sanitizing everything, because, you know, you have to make sure everything's clean. We don't have any cross contamination. Now, as a producer going in, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to wipe everything down before I get started, because even though it looks clean, I can't guarantee that there aren't some residual trace elements there. But from the workshop, I believe they also talked about doing a regular deep clean, which was done by the kitchen itself instead of by those renting. So that way, I mean, if you're there for 6 hours, you're not going to have time to move things out of the way and pull things out of the way. And, you know, for sanitation purposes, you know, we'd want to make sure that that was all taken care of.
Yeah, and with that, I don't know if we said this already, but we would be hiring a full-time kitchen manager to kind of teach the rules to the new producers and make sure things are going smoothly, as well as do things like the business coaching and stuff like that.
Dan, did you want that June 13th event? Does it tie into this well?
That's kind of him and FFPD, or that's their baby.
Yeah, I can promote an event real quick. Iowa State University and Grinnell Farm to Table are hosting a farm and food celebration in Grinnell on June 13th. And it'll be, it starts at 11 a.m. with a panel and then a lunch here at the college. And then the afternoon is a farm crawl. So there's 4 different farm sites to go visit. And then in the evening from 5 to 8, we're having a community dinner with all local produce, locally produced goods in Central Park. And that'll be catered by the Iowa Kitchen Relish for that meal. So if you want to come to that, go online and look up Farm and Food Celebration Grinnell.
Now I'm feeling left out, kind of. In all of your surveys, there is a flyer for our Preserve the Taste of Summer workshop coming up at the end of the month. So we're gonna have a fun time. We've got a different specialist coming to give people more information on how to safely can, dehydrate, and freeze their summer yummies. So scan that QR code. If you'd like to come register, we would love to have you. Thank you guys for coming out tonight. Let us know what questions you may have. Feel free to stick around and chat for a minute.
Excuse me, my quote-unquote day job.